Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to day 22 of our Bhakti Vaibhava seminar on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4. We are in the 9th chapter of the 4th canto. 9th chapter is titled Dhruva Maharaj Returns Home. And we are in, let me just check, section number 4. From verse 18 to verse 26, the Lord responds to Dhruva's prayers. And we have reached, the next verse at least, which we'll do, is verse 24. Okay, so let us get into it, but first of all, let us chant our prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastuchya Deshitarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so here we are. And we are ready to go. Verse 24. The Lord continued, I am the heart of all sacrifices. You'll be able to perform many great sacrifices and also give great charities. In this way, you'll be able to enjoy the blessings of material happiness in this life. And at the time of your death, you'll be able to remember me. Wow, the Lord, merciful, gee whiz. So anyway, Prabhupada says the most important thing here is the Lord's instruction about how to remember him at the end of life. Ante Narayana Smriti. The result of whatever we do spiritually is spiritually successful if we remember Narayan at the end. So, of course, the program, Prabhupada makes the point, and gee whiz, it's such an important point. The program of remembrance can be disturbed by many things, so many things. But Dhruva's life is so pure, the Lord assures he'll never forget him. So at the time of death, he would remember him, and before that he would enjoy the world, not by sense gratification, but by sacrifices. So the Vedas say when you do sacrifice, you must give charity, not only to Brahmins, but to Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras also. So the Lord assured Dhruva that he'll be able to do these things. So what about us? What are we meant to do? Well, the thing is that it's Kali Yuga. We have to do the Sankirtan Yajna. So this Krishna consciousness movement, is designed by Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya to teach people, including us, the exact instruction of the Lord. Please get this. Please catch this. I mean, this is so important. It's just invaluable. You cannot place a value on it. So in this way, we can and we must, we shall, we will continuously do Sankirtan Yajna and continuously chant Hare Krishna. Then at the end of life we'll remember Krishna, our lives will be successful. Hare Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, in this age, distribution of prasad has replaced distribution of money. Let me repeat that. In this age, distribution of prasad has replaced distribution of money. So, no one has sufficient money to distribute, but if we distribute Krishna Prasad as far as possible, this is more valuable than the distribution of money. I mean, particularly now. I mean, it's one thing to distribute money to devotees, and even particularly devotees who can really put it to good use. That's one thing. But prasadam is valuable for everyone. Devotees, non-devotees, great devotees, those who are anti the devotees. Prasadam is universally extremely valuable. Verse 25, the personality of Godhead continued. My dear Dhruva, after your material life in this body, you will go to my planet, which is always offered obeisances by the residents of all other planetary systems. It is situated above the planets of the 7 rishis, and having gone there, you will never have to come back again to this material world. So, Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, it's a short-ish purport, it's not long. It is not long, but it's got some good things. So here the word navartate is significant, means never come back. So the Lord is saying, you will not come back to the material world, for you will reach my abode. So Dhruvaloka is within the material world. On it is an ocean of milk, and within that ocean is the island Svetadweep. So it's clearly indicated that this planet is above the 7 planetary systems of the rishis. Because it is Vishnu Loka, it is worshipped by all other planetary systems. So the question may be there, what will happen to it at the time of dissolution of the universe? Like total dissolution, not just at the end of each of Brahma's days. So Prabhupada says the answer is simple. Dhruvaloka remains, like other Vaikuntha lokas which are beyond the universe. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has commented in this connection that the very word navartate indicates that this planet is eternal. Right, very good. On to verse 26. The great sage Maitreya said, after being worshipped and honored by the boy, Dhruva Maharaj, and after offering him his abode, Lord Vishnu on the back of Garuda returned to his abode as Dhruva Maharaj looked on. Krishna. So there is a very short purport here, 2 sentences, which we'll just read. From this verse it appears that Lord Vishnu awarded Dhruva Maharaj the same abode in which he resides. His abode is described in Bhagavad Gita 15:6. Yad gatva na nivartante tad dhamma paramam mama. That's the comment that Srila Prabhupada makes in the purport, and that's it. Okay, so now we move on, devotees, to the next section. Section 5. Dhruva laments his material desires. This is verse 27 to verse 36. So let us first of all read through the verses themselves, and then we'll come back, as usual, do the verses again with their purports. Verse 27. Despite having achieved the desired result of his determination by worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord, Dhruva Maharaj was not very pleased. Thus, he returned to his home. 28. Sri Vidura inquired, "My dear Brahman," of course he's speaking to Maitreya, "Excuse me, my dear Brahman, the abode of the Lord is very difficult to attain. It can be attained only by pure devotional service, which alone pleases the most affectionate, merciful Lord. Dhruva Maharaj achieved this position even in one life, and he was very wise and conscientious. Why then was he not very pleased?" Verse 29, Maitreya answered, "Dhruva Maharaj's heart, which was pierced by the arrows of the harsh words of his stepmother, was greatly aggrieved, and thus when he fixed upon his goal of life, he did not forget her misbehavior. He did not demand actual liberation from this material world, but at the end of his devotional service, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared before him, he was simply ashamed of the material demands he had in his mind." Verse 30, Dhruva Maharaj thought to himself, "To endeavor to be situated in the shade of the lotus feet of the Lord is not an ordinary task, because even the great brahmacharis, headed by Sanandan, who practiced Ashtanga Yoga in trance, attained the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet only after many, many births. Within 6 months I achieved the same result, yet due to my thinking differently from the Lord, I fell down from my position." Krishna. Okay, let's carry on and see what it's all about. Verse 31. "Alas, just look at me. I'm so unfortunate. I approached the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can immediately cut the chain of the repetition of birth and death. But still out of my foolishness, I prayed for things which are perishable." Verse 32. "Since all the demigods who are situated in the higher planetary system will have to come down again, they're all envious of my being elevated to Vaikuntha Loka by devotional service. These intolerant demigods have dissipated my intelligence, and only for this reason could I not accept the genuine benediction of the instructions of sage Narada." Verse 33. Dhruva Maharaj lamented, "I was under the influence of the illusory energy. Being ignorant of the actual facts, I was sleeping on her lap. Under a vision of duality, I saw my brother as my enemy, and falsely I lamented within my heart thinking they are my enemies. Oh, Krishna, this is deep. Verse 34. It is very difficult to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in my case, although I have satisfied the Supersoul of the whole universe, I have prayed only for useless things. My activities were exactly like treatment given to a person who is already dead. Just see how unfortunate I am. For in spite of meeting the Supreme Lord, who can cut one's link with birth and death, I have prayed for the same conditions again. Verse 35. Because of my state of complete foolishness and paucity of pious activities, although the Lord offered me his personal service, I wanted material name, fame, and prosperity. My case is just like that of the poor man who, when he satisfied a great emperor who wanted to give him anything he might ask, out of ignorance asked only a few broken grains of husked rice. Krishna, Krishna. Verse 36. The great sage Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, persons like you, who are pure devotees of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead who can offer liberation, and who are always attached to the honey of his lotus feet, are always satisfied in serving at the lotus feet of the Lord. In any condition of life, such persons remain satisfied, and thus they never ask the Lord for material prosperity. Okay, so that's the end of that section. So we go back and we'll read through it again as usual and read the purports. So it's section 5, verse 27 to verse 36. Dhruva laments his material desires. Verse 27. Despite having achieved the desired result of his determination by worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord, Dhruva Maharaj was not very pleased. Thus he returned to his home. Okay, so first of all, Prabhupada makes the point that through worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service, as Narada instructed him, Dhruva got his desired result, the great kingdom. It was somewhat childish, but he got it. The Lord is so kind, he fulfilled that desire. A residence higher than any ever occupied by one of his family members. So therefore he was offered a planet that the Lord lives on. So his desire was fulfilled. But still, when he got home, he wasn't satisfied. Because in pure devotional service, there's no demand from the Lord. But he had demanded something. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, thus, although the Lord also fulfilled his desire, he was not very pleased. Rather, he was ashamed that he had demanded something from the Lord, for he should not have done this. Verse 28, Sri Vidura inquired, my dear Brahmin, the abode of the Lord is very difficult to attain. It can be attained only by pure devotional service, which alone pleases the most affectionate, merciful Lord. Dhruva Maharaj achieved this position even in one life, and he was very wise and conscientious. Why then was he not very pleased? Well, so Vidura's inquiry is very, very relevant. I mean, it's essential. So Prabhupada points to the word artha vit, which refers to one who knows how to discriminate between reality and unreality. It's very significant. So such a person who can distinguish like that between reality and unreality, Prabhupada says, such a person is called a Paramahansa, or one who accepts only the active principle of everything, just as a swan takes only milk from a mixture of water and milk, somehow extracts it, separates it. So like this, the Paramahansa accepts only the Lord as his life and soul and neglects all external material things. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Dhruva Maharaj was in this category, and due to his determination, he achieved the result he desired. But still, when he returned home, he was not very pleased. In fact, it appears he was really quite displeased. Verse 29, Maitreya answered, Dhruva Maharaj's heart, which was pierced by the arrows of the harsh words of his stepmother, was greatly aggrieved. And thus when he fixed upon his goal of life, he did not forget her misbehavior. He did not demand actual liberation from this material world. But at the end of his devotional service, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared before him, he was simply ashamed of the material demands he had in his mind. So Srila Prabhupada, wow, Srila Prabhupada. Let's just have a look here. Yeah, now this is the mega purport, is it? Yeah, it is. Fasten your seatbelts, devotees. Okay, let's get into it. Prabhupada, first point he makes is just such a point. This important verse has been discussed by many stalwart commentators. Yes, because it's of extreme importance. Why was Dhruva not satisfied? Even after achieving the goal of his life. So the thing is, pure devotees, they're always free from material desires. In this world, Krishna, in this world material desires are all most demonic. Yeah, most demonic. One thinks of others as enemies, thinks of taking revenge against them, aspires to become topmost person in the material world. Thus one competes with all others. So Bhagavad Gita, of course, in the 16th chapter describes this as being asuric, demoniac. But a pure devotee has no demand from the Lord. The only concern, the only interest is how can I serve the Lord? And not concerned about what may happen in the future. So in his Mukundamala Stotra, King Kulashekar prays, my dear Lord, I don't want any position of sense gratification within this material world. I simply want to engage in your service perpetually. And of course we know Lord Chaitanya didn't pray even for mukti, liberation. So, okay, second paragraph. Oops, let's have a look. So here Maitreya has replied to Vidura that Dhruva, influenced by the revengeful mood towards his stepmother, didn't think of mukti, actually didn't even know what was mukti. So he failed to aim for mukti as the goal of life. But of course the thing is, the pure devotee also doesn't want mukti, doesn't want anything, doesn't demand anything from the Lord. And Dhruva realized this when he saw the Lord personally present before him. Because at that point, he was elevated to the Vasudeva stage. The Vasudeva platform, not Vasudev, but Vasudeva, which means the platform upon which the Lord is revealed. So the Vasudeva platform refers to the stage when material contamination is conspicuous by its absence only. So there's no question of the modes of material nature. Rather, one can see the Lord. Prabhupada concludes the paragraph by saying, because on the Vasudeva platform, one can see God face to face, the Lord is also called Vasudeva. Okay, on to the third paragraph. So we know what Dhruva Maharaj's demand was, bigger kingdom even than Lord Brahma's. So Krishna is so kind towards his devotee, especially one like Dhruva who went to do devotional service in the forest alone at the age of 5. So the Lord is so kind towards his devotee, especially like this type of devotee, that even though the motive may be impure, the Lord doesn't consider the motive. He's concerned with the service. But if the devotee has a motive, Prabhupada says, the Lord directly or indirectly knows, of course, and fulfills it. These are some of the special favors of the Lord to the devotee. Okay, fourth paragraph. Dhruva Maharaj was offered Dhruvaloka, the place where no conditioned soul had ever resided. Even Brahma was not allowed, or is not allowed to enter Dhruvaloka. When there's a crisis in the universe, the demigods go to see the Lord, but they just stand on the bank of the milk ocean. Yeah, they don't cross over it, they can't. So the fulfillment of Dhruva Maharaj's desire, a position more exalted than that of even his great-grandfather, Brahma, was offered to him. Fifth paragraph. Let us push on. So here in this verse, the Lord is described as Mukti Pati, which means one under whose lotus feet are all kinds of mukti. And Prabhupada explains that, of course, there are 5. Generally, there are 5 types of mukti. Sayuja means merging, basically. Sarupya, having a form like the Lord. Salokya, living on the same planet. Samipya, having opulence like the Lord. And Sarshti, yes, being close to the Lord. So generally, of them, the Mayavadis want Sayuja. Prabhupada makes interesting point. Many scholars don't consider it to really be mukti, because at the end you fall back to the material world, patantyada. So the monist may merge into the effulgence of the Lord, but actually the living entity always wants reciprocation. So even though the monist, impersonalist, becomes one with the effulgence of the Lord, because he can't associate with the Lord, can't serve the Lord, he falls down, and the service propensity becomes expressed in humanitarianism, etc. There are many instances of such fall downs, even for great sannyasis in the Mayavad school. And we can mention, for those of you who are from Hindu backgrounds, you would have heard of Arya Samaj. You know, in the beginning, they were staunch impersonalists, completely staunch, total impersonalists. But after some time, somehow or other, some of their members started developing other interests. So now you find that just about a kilometer, less than a kilometer from where I'm sitting right now, is the Arya Benevolent Home. It's Arya Samaj. It's Arya Samaj. But it's an old people's home. And they regard that as being an important activity for them. Yeah, so it's the same thing. They've fallen down from their staunch impersonalism into humanitarianism. And not only that, I've seen in Port Elizabeth in South Africa that in the Arya Samaj temple, quite a big temple, they have many deities of demigods and the usual, like Hindu temple type of situation. But they're meant to be staunch impersonalists. No deities, it's all fiction. But they're not. So it's very hard to maintain that standard of staunch impersonalism. It's extremely hard. And Lord Krishna makes that point in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse 5, that it's very hard for those who are embodied, it's very hard to maintain a sort of an impersonal, non-bodied, but impersonal type of practice. So therefore, the Vaishnavas don't accept Sayujya as being mukti. They say mukti means engagement in devotional service, getting out of serving Maya. And Lord Chaitanya also says the constitutional position of the living entity is to serve the Lord. That's real mukti. Jivera Suruphoya Krishnera Nitya Das. Krishnera Tatasta Shakti Bade Abade Prakash. Basically means the constitutional position of the living entity is to be the eternal servant of the Lord, because we're marginal potency, one with and different from the Lord. So, Prabhupada continues, we're still in 6th paragraph, that when you're in your original position, giving up any artificial position, then you are a mukta, then you're a liberated soul. Bhagavad Gita says the devotee is considered to be on the Brahma Bhuta platform when he has no material contamination. Padma Purana also confirms mukti means engagement in the service of the Lord. So we go on, devotees, to paragraph number 7, and there's a few more coming too. All right. So Maitreya explains that Dhruva did not actually want to serve the Lord in the beginning. He just wanted his bigger position than Lord Brahma, which is, it's just service to the senses. It's not service to the Lord. Even you get the position of Brahma, you're still a conditioned soul. So, but Prabodhananda Saraswati makes a wonderful point. If you're elevated to the level of pure devotee, to pure devotional service, you consider even the position of Brahma to be like the position of an insect. The reason is, why like that? Because the insect's only interest is sense gratification. And Lord Brahma also wants to dominate material nature. So sense gratification means dominating material nature. Let us go now on to the paragraph 8. That's the first point we just mentioned. So competition between conditioned souls is based on dominating material nature. Scientists are proud of their knowledge because they are discovering more ways to dominate material nature. And they think this is the advancement of human civilization. So Dhruva's position was initially like that, to get a greater position than Lord Brahma. But after seeing the Lord, he understood that what he thought was very valuable, the big kingdom, it was actually just like broken glass. But now he's got the Lord. Now it's like he's got many diamonds. Prabhupada says, as soon as he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, he immediately became conscious of the unimportance of his demand from the Lord to have an exalted position better than Lord Brahma's. So we're getting there, devotees. Now is the 9th paragraph. 9th paragraph. So when Dhruva came to that level, to the Vasudeva platform, due to seeing the Lord face to face, all his material contamination was cleared away, gone. So then he became ashamed that I was demanding these things. I wanted these things. He became ashamed of his demands and of his achievements. Oh my Lord. He was ashamed that he'd gone to Madhuvan, got a guru like Narada Muni, but was still thinking of revenge against his stepmother. Oh Lord. Yeah, so he was thinking of getting the most exalted position in this world. These are the causes of his moroseness, even after getting benedictions from the Lord. 10th paragraph. Devotees, there are only 11 paragraphs, so 2 more to go. So when he actually saw the Lord, then there was no question of his revengeful attitude against his stepmother. And nor was there any aspiration to lord it over the material world. But still, the Lord is so kind. He knew Dhruva wanted these. So when speaking in front of Dhruva, he used the word Vedaham. Means, I know. Because when Dhruva wanted material benefits, the Lord in the heart knew. So he knew everything. He always knows everything a person thinks. Hare Krishna. I'm sorry, my Lord. Yeah. Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 verse 26 confirms this. I mean, it's very interesting and it's very important. So first thing is the Lord fulfilled all of Dhruva Maharaj's desires. Yeah. His revengeful attitude towards his stepmother and stepbrother was satisfied. Getting a great kingdom greater than Lord Brahma was also satisfied. Getting his position in Dhruvaloka. He hadn't even thought of getting an eternal planet. This is way beyond what he wanted. So, but the Lord thought, when the Lord understood this is what he wants, the Lord thought, if he gets such a position in the material world, what's he going to do with it? Well, you know what he would have done with it. He would have tried to enjoy life, or at least your typical person would, make the most of the opportunity, but then at the end of life, leave the body and away you go. So therefore the Lord gave him a chance to rule the material world for 36,000 years with unchangeable senses and the opportunity to do great sacrifices and become the most famous king in the material world. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, and after finishing with all this material enjoyment, Dhruva would be promoted to the spiritual world, which includes the Dhruvaloka. So on we go, devotees. Now it's verse 30. Dhruva Maharaj thought to himself, to endeavor to be situated in the shade of the lotus feet of the Lord is not an ordinary task, because even the great brahmacharis, headed by Sanandana, who practiced Ashtanga Yoga in chants, they attained the shelter of the Lord's lotus feet only after many, many births. Within 6 months, I achieved the same result. Yet due to my thinking differently from the Lord, I fell down from my position. Fell down basically means he had this big material desire. So now here's Dhruva explaining the cause of his moroseness. First point, to see the Lord is not easy. The 4 Kumars and other yogis, they had to do yoga for many births in trance before they could see the Lord. Dhruva saw him after only 6 months of devotional service. He had some sort of expectation the Lord would take him to his abode immediately. But he understood that the Lord offered him the rule of the world for 6,000 years because he had been in Maya and wanted revenge and wanted to rule his father's kingdom. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Dhruva Maharaj greatly lamented his propensity for ruling the material world and his revengeful attitude towards other living entities. Verse 31. Alas, just look at me. I'm so unfortunate. I approached the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can immediately cut the chain of the repetition of birth and death. But still, out of my foolishness, I prayed for things which are perishable. Right, so let's have a look at the first paragraph, there's only one paragraph of purport here. Prabhupada says the word anatmiyam is significant because it means the soul. and anatmya means without any conception of the soul. Prabhupada says Rishabhadev instructed his sons that unless a human comes to the point of understanding Atma, whatever he does is ignorance, and his whole life is defeated. Phew, that's heavy, isn't it? So Dhruva laments he had the opportunity to get cessation of birth and death, but he asked for something perishable. When Hiranyakashipu asked Brahma for immortality, Brahma said he couldn't give it because he doesn't have it. Shows only the Lord can offer it. Harim vina na mritim taranti. Harim vina na mritim taranti. It said, without the blessings of Hari, Harim vina, without the blessings of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no one can stop the continuous chain of birth and death within this material world. So therefore the Lord is also called Bhava Chit. Bhava Chit. One who can cut off material existence. And of course we know Vaishnava philosophy in the process of Krishna consciousness prohibits the devotee from all material aspirations. Devotee must be anyabhilashita shunyam. I think we all know that verse from Nectar of Devotion. Free from any desires, free from karma and jnana. So Dhruva was initiated by Narada Muni into the chanting of Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is a Vishnu mantra, of course, which elevates one to Vishnu Loka. So Dhruva's regretting, although he was initiated in a Vishnu mantra by a Vaishnav, he still wanted material benefit. If you remember, he insisted. That was another cause of lamentation. Although he got the benefit of Vishnu mantra by the mercy of the Lord, he still strived for material benefits while doing devotional service. Amazing. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, in other words, every one of us who's engaged in devotional service in Krishna consciousness should be completely free from all material aspirations. Otherwise, we will have to lament like Dhruva Maharaj. Verse 32. Since all the demigods who are situated in the higher planetary system will have to come down again, they're all envious of my being elevated to Vaikuntha Loka by devotional service. These intolerant demigods have dissipated my intelligence, and only for this reason could I not accept the genuine benediction of the instructions of sage Narada. Well, that's interesting. Prabhupada begins the purport by saying that many Vedic literatures say that when you do austerities, the demigods become concerned that they're going to lose their positions because you'll become powerful, you'll kick them out. I mean, of course they know, Prabhupada says here, they know their posts are impermanent. They know that. Bhagavad Gita in the 9th chapter, Shine Punya Marchula Kam Vishanti, it confirms this. So then they come back to earth. Second paragraph. It's in fact demigods control different activities of our limbs, even our eyelids. So Dhruva thinks the demigods conspired against him to pollute his intelligence. So although he was a disciple of a great devotee, Narada, he couldn't follow his instructions. Anyway, so Narada Muni had preached to him to not bother, don't worry about the insult of Suruchi. But Dhruva was determined to achieve the benediction of the Lord. So Narada advised him, go home. And later he could try to practice devotional service. So Dhruva regretted that he had rejected the advice of Narada Muni and adamantly asked for something perishable, revenge and a kingdom. So third paragraph, which it's just a very short paragraph actually. So let me just read it. Dhruva Maharaj regretted very much that he could not take seriously the instruction of his spiritual master, and that his consciousness was therefore contaminated. Still the Lord is so merciful that due to Dhruva's execution of devotional service, he offered Dhruva the ultimate Vaishnav goal. 33. Dhruva Maharaj lamented, I was under the influence of the illusory energy. Being ignorant of the actual facts, I was sleeping on her lap. Under a vision of duality, I saw my brother as my enemy, and falsely I lamented within my heart, thinking, they are my enemies. Let's go into this one paragraph purport here to verse 33. So real knowledge is revealed to the devotees when we come to the right conclusion about life by the grace of the Lord. Our creating friends and enemies on the material level is like a dream. We create so many things out of impressions in the subconscious, but they're all temporary and unreal. In the same way in material life, even though we're awake, because we have no information about the soul and supersoul, we create friends and enemies just on the basis of imagination. So Prabhupada mentions Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, author of Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says, in the material world or in material consciousness, good and bad are the same. Any apparent difference is just mental concoction. We're all sons of the Lord, we're all children of the Lord, we're all byproducts of material nature. So through contamination by the modes, we make distinctions. It's another type of dreaming. Bhagavad Gita chapter 5 verse 18 makes the point that the learned don't distinguish between the learned Brahman, the elephant, the dog, etc. They don't see in terms of external body. The learned don't see in terms of the external body, but just in terms of the spirit soul. Body is just combination of 5 material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So in that sense, the bodies of humans and demigods are the same. We're all spiritual sparks, part of the Lord, but we make friends and enemies as dictated by Maya. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, Dhruva Maharaj therefore said, Daivim Mayam Upasrita. The cause of his bewilderment was his association with the illusory material energy. So on we go, devotees. Verse 34. It is very difficult to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in my case, although I have satisfied the Supersoul of the whole universe, I have prayed only for useless things. My activities were exactly like treatment given to a person who's already dead. Give them an injection. give him some antibiotics, improve his diet. Let me just read it again. My activities were exactly like treatment given to a person who's already dead. Just see how unfortunate I am. For in spite of meeting the Supreme Lord, who can cut one's link with birth and death, I have prayed for the same conditions again. So as it happens, devotees, there's a very short purport here. Very short purport. Let me just read it. Sometimes it so happens that a devotee engaged in the loving service of the Lord desires some material benefit in exchange for the service. This is not the proper way to discharge devotional service. Out of ignorance, of course, sometimes a devotee does so, but Dhruva Maharaj regrets his personal behavior in this connection. 35. Because of my state of complete foolishness and paucity of pious activities, although the Lord offered me his personal service, I wanted material name, fame, and prosperity. My case is just like that of a poor man who, when he satisfied a great emperor who wanted to give him anything he might ask, out of ignorance asked only a few broken grains of husked rice. So here Prabhupada says the word swarajyam, complete independence, is very significant. The conditioned souls don't know what this is, complete independence. It means to be situated in your constitutional position, dependent on the Lord, like a child who plays independently, but is under the shelter of the parents who protect him. So the independence of the conditioned soul does not mean to fight with Maya, but rather to surrender to Krishna. So in the material world, of course, everyone's trying to be independent by fighting with Maya, the struggle for existence. But real independence means to be reinstated in the service of the Lord. Anyone who goes back to Godhead is freely offering their service to the Lord. Yes, this is complete independence. Contrary to this is material overlordship, which is mistakenly thought to be independence. Many political leaders, of course, have tried to establish independence, but the result is that people's dependence has increased. Just look what's happening now. Oh, it's crazy, it's ridiculous. In America, in England, oh gosh. So we can't be happy through material independence. We have to surrender to the Lord and render devotional service. So second paragraph, Dhruva regrets. He wanted material opulence more than his great-grandfather, Lord Brahma. His begging from the Lord was like asking a great emperor for a few grains of broken rice. So Prabhupada says the conclusion is, anyone in devotional service must never ask for material prosperity from the Lord. And Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, the awarding of material prosperity simply depends on the stringent rules and regulations of the external energy. Pure devotees ask the Lord only for the privilege of serving him. This is our real independence. If we want anything else, it is a sign of our misfortune. And then, there's just one more verse in this section here, which does have a purport, but so it will take, 2 or 3 minutes, but I think we can just do it. 36, the great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, persons like you who are pure devotees of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead who can offer liberation, and are always attached to the honey of his lotus feet, are always satisfied in serving at the lotus feet of the Lord. In any condition of life, such persons remain satisfied, and thus they never ask the Lord for material prosperity. So, okay, there's a single paragraph purport here. Now, we need to remember in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Bhoktaram Yagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, that he is the enjoyer, the proprietor, and the friend of everyone. Yeah, more than anyone else can be. So when you know this perfectly, you're always satisfied. So like this, a pure devotee never hankers for any material prosperity. The karmis, jnanis, and yogis always hanker for personal happiness. Karmis too, they work hard, improve their economic condition. Jnanis, severe austerities to get liberation. Yogis also severe austerities in the yoga system for getting mystical powers. Devotees not interested, satisfied in any condition as long as he can serve the Lord. The Lord's lotus feet are compared to a lotus. Inside is saffron dust. And the Lord, the devotee, always drinks the honey from the Lord's lotus feet. But if you're not free from material desires, you can't taste that honey. Therefore, you've got to do devotional service and not be disturbed by changing material circumstances. Desirelessness for material prosperity is called nishkama. But don't think nishkama means giving up all desires. That's impossible. Yeah, it means only desiring to serve Krishna. We're eternal, we eternally have desires. It's a symptom of life. So desirelessness means not desiring anything for our sense gratification. This is called nispriha. There's already an arrangement for our material comforts, so we should remain satisfied with the comforts offered by the Lord, as the Ishopanishad says. So there we go, devotees. We finished that section, and we will carry on tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.